Welcome to the Global Dads Council podcast, where we discuss and debate the most pressing issues for fathers and men around the world. Today, in episode 2, we're going to discuss managing the relationship with your spouse and partner as a father. Rupesh, why don't you take us out on this one?
Sure. This is Rupesh Bhambwani here. I'm a founder of Cool Dads Club based out of Bombay, India. I'm a father of 2 lovely children. My daughter is 11 years old and my son is turning 7 in December. It's a very interesting question, Paul. I can definitely share a personal journey, that I am currently going through with my own wife. I've been married for last 16 years now. I think fatherhood kind of came very naturally to me. It's something that I was able to, dive into the deep end of the pool and figure things out. Unfortunately, I have not been able to master the art of being a great husband. And for many years, I thought I was doing pretty okay. Until, a few years back when we realized that it's not something, the direction that, we are wanting to take as kind of husband and wife. And that realization did not hit me personally. My wife brought it to my attention and she said, if you look at it over the last, 10, 11 years since we've had our daughter, you've never really taken the effort to actually, take me out. It's me who has always been initiating, events or, places to go to. You always looked at, taking kids along with you every time. So, and I was like, yeah, sure. That's exactly what a family is, right? I mean, I look at, going out with family and you should be happy that I'm taking the kids along, every week we go. But I think what came out of the entire discussion was that that's not what relationship is about. I think relationship is about, being a great father, but also being a great husband. Because if you are a great husband, a lot of things will start flowing naturally. This realization has been hitting me in the last few years now, and I have been also trying to talk to a lot of fathers out there to figure out, is that something which they have been struggling with? Guess what? This is just not my story. This is across the board. Most of the men who are involved with their children or not involved with their children are still struggling to manage their relationships because the dynamics change, the value system changes, the things that you want to do with your kids changes. And in that process, we end up neglecting the most important relationship, which is the mom.
Rupesh, I hear this story and it really resonates with me because, similarly, like, I focus so hard on being a dad, to my 3 daughters, 5, 10, and 13. And then if I have a little extra time, I go play golf. I often play golf by myself, but I love to just, unwind. And, my wife has said to me, what's going on here? It's like, who are you married to? Are you married to golf? Or are you married to me? Now, as, the founder of the company of dads, where we're trying to sort of, hold up lead dads, those men who are, the go-to parents, both in fatherhood, but also in, supporting your spouse, this really hits home because obviously I didn't think I was doing a bad job. I thought I had it figured out, and it was exactly that. And so, one of the things I did that was a sort of, easy fix and something that we could do together, often was we started taking walks together. And we started, particularly because we both work and we both work from home. And in our neighborhood, we'll look at our calendars and say, okay, we have a half an hour at 2:30 in the afternoon, and we'll take our dog and, literally walk 15 minutes up the street and 15 minutes, down the street. And that's how we, look to connect. Because as you can see on this podcast, when you're trying to do something privately, all of a sudden a small child walks in and wants to whisper something in your ear which you can't hear. Brian or Hanson, why don't you take, how is it for you guys where you are?
Well, I'm Brian from Singapore. I run a men's organization, Center for Fathering and National Fathers Movement. And one of the things that we really struggle with is, understanding the roles that my wife and I play at home. And I struggle a lot initially with the kind of expectations that we have of how we're raising our children together, right? We all know that we're meant to do it in partnership. But I recall when my child was learning to cycle, my son was cycling and he fell. The first thing mommy did was rush to him and tend to his wound, soothe him, and then she said, come, let's go back and rest. I'll be shouting from the other end, like, no, you get back onto your bike and you continue and you keep going, do another 3 rounds, right? And then my wife by now will be, that outcome what will happen when we get back, right? And then there'll be times when when the kids are playing, my wife would say, don't jump so high, don't climb so high, don't run so fast, you might hurt yourself. And I'll be like, climb higher, jump higher, run faster, just keep going and going and going. And after a lot of conversations, we've come to realize that my wife wants to protect our children today. Whereas we dads, we want to prepare our children for the future. We want to future-proof them and all. And our child needs both. Our child needs to know that, when he's hurt, he gets his emotional needs tended to today. At the same time, he also needs to learn how to pick himself up and because that's how we impart resilience to our children, right? So our children, in a way, are like plants. They need both sunlight and water. You can't have too much of one in the absence of the other. So that's when we've acknowledged that our roles at home as husband and wife, as mom and dad, is uniquely different yet complementary, and it's a partnership that we need to be able to focus on to raise our children together.
I agree with you, Brian, but I think about that sometimes, when your kids, fall, particularly the one who just interrupted our podcast. I find like if you don't acknowledge it, if you just kind of look, most of the time they'll look to you and then they'll hop back up. Unless they're really injured, unless they really did hurt themselves, then, the crying starts immediately.
Yep.
Hanson, talk to us about your experience in co-parenting and what that's done, for the relationship that you're presenting to your son.
Yeah, of course. So hi everyone, I'm the founder of Daddy Life in London in the UK. And I am a very proud dad to one 8-year-old, or soon to be 8-year-old, I should say. So my story perhaps is a little bit different to the other chaps on this, in that I co-parent with Max's mum. And I have to say, I think our friendship and our partnership in terms of what Brian was talking about, and our partnership in terms of being parents, is probably stronger than ever. And that's taken a lot of work, since the separation, to communicate more openly, to communicate about my son, really, and about almost redeveloping a friendship based on that. But we worked hard to be very flexible with each other. We both run organizations. She's super busy, respect the hell out of everything that she does. And I think we've actually grown as better people, dare I say, since then as well, and kind of for ourselves as well as for each other and for Max. The one thing I think is interesting is, in hearing sort of Brian talk just now, it got me thinking that there are various different dynamics of a relationship or relationships, I should say, that have to evolve, as we evolve. And so I'll never forget, so we run a mentoring program for dads at work with a few different organizations. And I'll never forget, one of the mentors put it so well, and his analogy was that, before fatherhood, men are like solid blocks, in that we know what we're doing, we know where we're going. There's a certain A to B about our day, about our relationships with significant others. There's certain solidity about it. And he said, then fatherhood comes along and it changes us to bendy lines. And we need to kind of flex and weave and curve into new sorts of things that we've just never, ever encountered before. And it kind of struck me as Brian was talking there, that actually, I think we as men are very good in this, particularly this current generation, of being more flexible to the needs of our children, but perhaps not as much when it comes to the relationship just with partners. And that's not necessarily the relationship about your partner and child, it's just your partner. And I think there is definitely a conversation or more conversations that need to happen, and communication about what that partnership means. Because you're right, a lot of the times that will be with kids, it's unavoidable, and it shouldn't be avoided. It should be something embraced. But I think what Rupesh was saying before, going on that journey of what your partnership is now, not necessarily with children, but just between you and your significant other, is a really, really important conversation. And I'd actually love to hear from Rupesh, the couple of years that you've been going through this, like what has been that process? What's been that development? What's been some of those things that I guess you've thought about, maybe tweaked, changed, or maybe in the process of?
Sure. I think, this has been a very enriching, journey for me for the last 2-3 years, I would say. And it's surprising that, you tend to believe that for a longest of time that you were operating as a good husband. But guess what? You are not, as per the view of your own wife. And that can come as a huge shock to you. And what we decided was that, most of the time our conversations are only around our children. It's very transactional. As the kids grow up, they have their schools, they have their homeworks, they have their play dates and birthdays, name it. And, you have all these kind of conversations taking place. And she made me realize that, we've never had a conversation about us, just you and me. That hit me pretty strong. And we figured out a plan that we need to very consciously carve out time, as Paul mentioned, that you need to look at your schedules and see that, can we go for a walk, or can we go out and do something just by ourselves. So what we started doing was, me and my wife, we actually hit the gym together these days. So I asked her, I said, what, does this count as me time? And she says, no, that does not count as me time, right? that's just working out, right? But we try to figure out, things that we both are wanting to do, and try and kind of, be present at the same time as much as possible. Because, this old age, way of looking at it, that we'll talk after the kids have gone off to bed, doesn't work. Because you're so exhausted by the end of the day, the last thing that you want to do is, talk. So we were trying to figure out, times during the day when we can actually have these conversations, like early mornings when the kids have been dropped off to the school bus. We come down, have a cup of coffee or a tea, spend that half an hour, catching up on things. And just explore these opportunities that you get to create this me time. Because if we are not consciously going to be working to create these me times, I can very confidently say that the relationship between the husband and wife can only go downhill from there as the kids, keep growing up.
This has been the second episode of the Global Dads Council podcast. If you have questions for us, at the end of each episode, there'll be a card with our emails. Please email us directly for future topics that you'd like us to discuss.